Unbiased and Biased Examples, Lesson 8.3F, talks about surveys, how they are good surveys because they're unbiased, or probably not so good because they're biased. So let's talk about what that means. Data gathered from a representative sample that can be used to make predictions about a population it can be used, and an unbiased sample is selected so that it is representative of an entire population. In a biased sample, one or more parts of the population is favored over the others. Have you ever heard of somebody say, well, I'm a little biased, but I like this? Have you ever heard of that before? So your parents might say they might be a little biased, but they think that you're like the best soccer player there is, or something like that. That's because your parents would be biased to you. So when you do a survey, you generally want to be unbiased so that it's representative of the whole population. So here's a couple of examples to kind of explain. It says that to determine the favorite dog breed of people who enter dog shows, every fifth person entering a dog show is surveyed. Since they're talking every fifth person, then this one would be considered unbiased. It's just every fifth person. But if you go to that dog show and try to determine what their favorite type of pet is, well, don't you think they're all going to say dogs? So when you do something like that, when you go to a specific place and ask them what's their favorite pet, that's definitely going to be a biased sample. You wouldn't want to ask what the favorite pet of somebody was at a dog show or a cat show. Of course they're going to say that particular pet. So the difference is whether it's fair overall. Okay, there's also going to be some questions similar to what we've been doing. Look at the example for 3 and 4. It says, students in the 8th grade surveyed 50 students at random about their favorite cookie. The results are at the table at the right. So it says 50 students that they surveyed. So if you added up 15 plus 11 plus 16 and 8, if you added those all up, you would end up with 50. So they surveyed 50 people. It says, what percent of students prefer chocolate chip? Well, 16 out of 50. So 16 out of 50 prefer chocolate chips. If you need to figure out the percentage, you could do the percent proportion that we did, or you could write a percent equation. So it's whatever you choose to do. They used an equation. They said, basically the equation, so it's the question, 16 is what percent of 50? 16 is what percent of 50? So the equation that you would get out of that would be 16, what's is mean? What is it? Equals, what is n, and then times 50. That's why they divided both sides by 50, 16 divided by 50, and they got 0.32. So they changed that to a percentage and got 32%. Dylan?
Can we do proportion?
You can. Let's do a proportion with that, okay? So we do fraction bar, equal sign, fraction bar, 100 on the bottom right. Do we know the percentage?
No.
No. That's your n. Do we have an of number?
Yes.
What is it?
50.
50 goes on the bottom left, and the other number then would be 16. So there's my percent proportion, and you cross. So 16 times 100 and 50 times n. 1600 and then 50n, you would divide by 50. So n would come out to be 32%. You most definitely are allowed to do percent proportion, either one. So we found a percentage of a survey result, and then the next question is, if the students order 500 boxes, how many should be chocolate chip? Well, we know it's 32%. So 32% of 500. So 0.32 times 500, they're saying about 160 of them should be chocolate chip. So that's how they make predictions. They do surveys of a small sample of people, and then they make predictions on a larger group. They find the percentages that came out in that small sample and then move it to the larger group. So let's look at some of the examples that we have here. Number 1, to determine if the tomatoes in 5 boxes stacked on a pallet are not spoiled, the restaurant manager checks 3 tomatoes from the top box. Is that biased or unbiased? How many of you think that it's unbiased? How many of you think it's biased? Okay, many more say biased. One of you that said biased, tell me why you think it's biased. Andrew? He only picked 3? Well, I don't know if it's the number or what. I don't know that it's really that he just picked 3. He could have picked 3 at random, but maybe what, Sarah? Yeah, he picked them all from the top box. Well, what about the box at the bottom? Or the box in the middle? You know, he could have picked 3 and picked 1 from the bottom, 1 from the middle, and 1 from the top, and that would have been more at random. But this is definitely, I would say, call this definitely biased. So it would not be a good sampling. It would not be a good sampling. What? All right, so a random survey of students in the 8th grade showed that 7 prefer hamburgers, 5 prefer chicken, and 3 prefer hot dogs. How many were total? How many were total? 15. So how can I figure out how many prefer hot dogs? 3 over 15 equals n over 100. 3 over 15 equals n over 100. So if I cross, 300 equals 15n. Anybody know what percentage that is? 20%. So 20% prefer hot dogs. If 120 students will attend the 8th grade picnic, how many hot dogs should be ordered? What should we do? What do we really want to find? We really want to find 20% of the 120, right? So, like you said, Mason, 0.20 times 120. Any ideas? Let me ask you this question. What's 10% of 120? 12. Because you move the decimal over. So if 10% is 12, 20% is 24. 24 students. Okay, very good. Questions?